One of my biggest regrets of all time literally is wasting my hard-earned money on stupid things that I didn't even really need, like mostly the status symbols. In my 20s, I worked my ass off hustling and growing my business, only to blow off most of the money I made on a BMW and renting expensive apartments. But thankfully now that I'm a little bit older and hopefully a little more mature, I've come to realize that it doesn't matter how much money you make if you're not able to manage how you spend it. So in this video, we're gonna talk about the 10 things that I'm not buying in 2025. All right, so we've all been there. You might be out shopping for clothes that look great in the moment when you try them on, and then you tell yourself all these scenarios of when and where you're gonna wear it to. But then you end up only ever wearing it once or maybe twice, and then it just sits in the back of your closet collecting dust. Well, this happened to me a lot of times actually, but most recently just a year ago, I went out and bought a suit. Actually, I went and got two because at the time I was going to a bunch of these bougie events where most of the people were dressed in suits, and I thought it would make sense for me to have a couple more in my closet. But little did I know that I would end up only wearing the suits for a grand total of 2 times. One to go to a whiskey tasting party and another time to a fancy luxury dinner event. Then after that, I just stopped going to these events and decided to lock in and stay focused on working on my business. So the suits are now just hanging in the back of my closet, and I'm thinking maybe I should consider selling them. So this year in 2025, I'm definitely not gonna be spending any more money buying not just suits, but new clothes in general, because I found that I'm always mostly wearing the same few outfits over and over again. So unless you work at a job that requires you to be a little bit more fashionable and dress a certain way, keeping a simple wardrobe is the key to minimizing decision fatigue, so you won't have to spend a lot of energy picking out what to wear each day. Plus, you'll save hundreds if not thousands of dollars each year, which could be invested and set you up towards becoming financially free. And if you really needed to get new clothes, make sure to get a few pieces that are versatile and that you can mix and match. So instead of buying a statement piece like a leather jacket, it might make more sense to get a handful of decent quality dress shirts that you could actually wear out to work or to social events. All right, this might sound kind of weird, but I am not spending any more money buying tea, like actual black tea bags. But hear me out. So for many years, I've always liked the idea of having a hot beverage, especially if the weather's cold. And I try to avoid having coffee at night because I don't want the caffeine to mess up my sleep. But a couple of months ago, I noticed that my teeth were starting to look really yellow and the stains on them look pretty bad. It's as if I hadn't brushed my teeth in weeks. I'm not gonna show you guys a picture of it because it's super gross. But anyway, I had to arrange a visit to the dentist who recommended that I did a teeth whitening session, which costed like $1,000. Thankfully, he did manage to get the stains off and whiten my teeth a little to look at least more normal. So while I was at the clinic, I asked the dentist what could have caused this, and so I told him I was equally puzzled because I don't smoke, I don't particularly drink a lot of red wine or eat curries or foods that could stain your teeth. And that's when he asked if I drank tea, and I was like, yeah, what's wrong with that? To which he said tea actually stains your teeth worse than coffee does because of the tannins in it. And at that moment I just felt like, damn, I've been lied to this whole entire time. Like, you'd think tea is the lesser evil, but as it turns out, I'm better off just sticking to coffee. But anyway, yeah, so because of that, I'm not gonna be drinking any more tea because I don't wanna have yellow teeth, and more importantly, I don't wanna have to shell out another $1,000 at a dentist to get it cleaned. All right, the next thing I'm not ever spending any more money on is overpriced cloud storage. How many of you guys have ever been in a situation where you've simply run out of space on your phone because you don't even bother to clear your photos or delete your unused apps? Well, recently that happened to me, and understandably so, because I got my phone I think about 2 years ago, and of course, being frugal, I chose not to buy a new one each year whenever Apple releases it. So I've used up pretty much all of the space available after using my phone to film videos sometimes and take like a million pictures of my dogs. And not to mention the hundreds of useless screenshots that I took and never went back to look at. So I was looking for a solution to free up space on my phone, and I discovered that you can actually plug in an external hard drive directly into your phone and transfer all your photos directly over to the hard drive. That way, you can delete everything and free up tons of space on your phone. So instead of paying 99 cents a month for 50 gigs of storage on iCloud, or you could even go up to $10 per month if you need more storage, which if you were to add up, it'd cost you like $600 over 5 years just to store your old photos. So instead of spending that much, I could just buy a 2 terabyte hard drive off of Amazon for just around $100 and never need to pay a recurring fee again for something that I can just store on my own. Now in that same vein, I'm also not planning on upgrading my phone each time Apple releases a new one because, let's be honest, for most people, the difference between an iPhone 15 versus 16 is pretty much nothing aside from a few minor upgrades. I mean, unless you really care about the new cameras or the more advanced processing chips, it doesn't make sense to spend thousands of dollars upgrading to a new phone every time they release one. So for me, I'm planning to keep using my phone until it actually stops working. In the past, when I was younger, I'd be self-conscious and want to be seen using the latest and greatest new tech. But now that I've gotten older and a little bit more mature, I realize that it's just a complete waste of money to be upgrading my phone just because they release a new one. In fact, now I use my phone all the time for my work and business, and it actually makes me money. So if I wanted to, I could technically justify this to be a business cost or even an investment, but I know that's just straight up bullshit because I don't actually have a good enough reason to need a new phone. See, even a base model iPhone 16 costs about $1,000. Think about it. If you were to upgrade each year, that's gonna cost you $5,000 over 5 years, just to stay slightly ahead. To me, that makes absolutely no sense. So there was a phase of my life where I was drinking and partying almost every other weekend because, let's face it, life can get pretty rough sometimes, and having drinks with your friends is not a bad way to relax and unwind, and maybe even forget about your problems for a while. That was until I realized how much money I was spending on alcohol. It was ridiculous. Just seeing the bill at the end of the night got me completely sobered up. Alcohol prices at bars and restaurants are some of the biggest ripoffs you'll ever pay for. And here's the reason why. A bottle of Bud Light at the grocery store could be as low as just $2. But at a bar, you'd be paying up to $8 for it. That's a 400% markup. And you're paying for literally the exact same beer. And it's the same thing with wine, and cocktails are by far the worst because if you made a margarita at home, it would cost you again probably like $2 or whatever for some tequila and lime juice and whatever else you need. But at a bar or a restaurant, you could pay up to $18 for a margarita. That's like 1,000% markup just for someone to make the drink for you. To me, this is absolutely ridiculous. What I would rather do if I felt like having drinks is to buy a bottle at the grocery store, invite some friends over, and enjoy the drinks at home for a fraction of the price. Okay, this is kind of embarrassing to admit, but I'm lactose intolerant. So some years back, there was this whole movement of going plant-based with vegan alternatives and all of that. So I tried drinking almond milk, and I thought it'd be a great alternative to actual milk. Although I could never really justify why the prices was always like 2 to 3 times the price of regular milk. Until I realized that, wait a minute, almonds don't even cost that much. And then when I researched more about it, I found that almond milk is one of the biggest scams in the grocery store. First off, that carton of it contains mostly water. Like a whole 98% of it is just water, and only about 2% or less is actually made up of almonds. So I was basically just buying almond flavored water. And to make it even worse, most of them are loaded with seed oils and artificial ingredients to make it taste better and last longer. And best of all, despite it being marketed as a healthier alternative, it's actually not. Almond milk has barely any protein and often has synthetic nutrients added to it. So I feel really dumb for falling into the marketing trap of all of these companies selling plant-based vegan nonsense like oat milk and almond milk. Honestly, I'd rather just drink regular milk and deal with the lactose intolerance rather than paying extra for any of these hippie milks. And while we're on the topic of grocery store items, another thing that I'm not ever buying again are name brand grocery items. Because really, branded grocery items are one of the easiest ways people waste money without even realizing it, especially when it comes to generic products like milk or cheese. Most of the time, the store brand version of it is even made from the exact same factory as the name brand ones. Take the Kirkland coffee, for example, that you get from Costco. This coffee is actually made by Starbucks, so the only real difference is in the marketing and of course the price. You're just paying extra for fancy packaging and advertising, and not necessarily better quality. Store brand products, on the other hand, are usually 20 to 30% cheaper on average, and over time that could really add up. Like for example, if you spent $500 a month on groceries, then you could save up to $100 a month, which translates to saving $1,200 each year. So unless I can actually taste a major difference, I'm not paying extra just to fund a brand's marketing budget. Now, I love the idea of books and of buying and collecting them, especially the ones with really pretty covers on them. In fact, every now and then when I'm out and about or when I'm at the airport, I always pop into the bookstore to check out what's available. But buying the book and reading it are completely two different things for me. I hate to admit it, but I've bought tons of books and most of them are just sitting on the shelf collecting dust. And I've spent hundreds of dollars buying books that I was excited about only to read 1 or 2 chapters before getting distracted and never finishing them. I like the idea of books because I like that we're able to get all of the knowledge and ideas from the writer and learn from it in a condensed format. But then I've also realized that me having ADHD meant that it's nearly almost impossible for me to actually have my mind focused long enough to read an entire book. In fact, I think throughout my entire adult life, I've only read like a dozen books from cover to cover. So what I do now is I try to use the local library, which is completely free. And most libraries have apps like Libby or Hoopla where you can borrow ebooks or audiobooks straight to your phone. And speaking of audiobooks, listening listening to one while driving or working out makes it way easier to actually finish and get through the book. So unless it's a book that I know I'll read and actually want to keep, I'm definitely done buying books just to let them sit on my shelf. Takeout is one of those things that you often don't even really think about. You know, unlike buying a new iPhone where you might actually contemplate and take some time to think about it before buying it. The same thing doesn't usually happen with getting takeout, simply because it's inexpensive, at least compared to a new iPhone. Plus the fact that it's convenient. Usually it'd be for times when you're, say, on the way home from work or whatever. But here's the problem. Takeout might not feel like it's expensive in the moment. Like a fast food meal could cost you just $10 or $15. Or if you ordered something from a restaurant, then it might be like 20 or 30 bucks for each person. But if you were to do this a couple times a week, suddenly you're now spending hundreds of dollars per month on food that's usually not even that great. Let's be honest, half the time takeout doesn't even taste that good by the time you get home. So if I'm gonna pay restaurant prices, I'd rather go to the restaurant, sit down and enjoy the experience, rather than eat lukewarm food out of a plastic container. What I've begun doing is to cook my meals at home. It might seem daunting at first, but what I found to work for me is to cook for a few days at a time. So I'd batch cook or meal prep my meals for 3 to 4 days at a time, and that way I can just reheat it when it's time to eat. There are many great recipes online that can be pretty easy to follow and doesn't take a whole lot of effort. Cooking at home is way cheaper, healthier, and often just as quick once you get used to it. I've saved thousands of dollars over the past months simply by not getting takeout on a regular basis. And similar to takeout, I've also stopped using any sort of food delivery app like DoorDash or Uber Eats. Because the fact is, it's even worse than takeout if you were to stop to think about it. First of all, restaurants already charge you more for delivery orders. Then you get hit with service fees, delivery fees, and a tip, which could quickly turn a $12 meal into a $25 expense. Then half the time, the food arrives cold, soggy, or maybe even missing something. So instead of paying double the price just to eat at home, I'd rather just cook something simple, or if I really wanted something from a restaurant, I'd rather just drive and pick it up myself. A single food delivery order can easily cost between $30 to $40. And if you do that twice a week, you're spending over $3,000 per year just to have food delivered to your door. Cutting out food delivery alone can easily save hundreds per month, and honestly, you might as well enjoy the experience of going out to eat and actually dine in at the restaurant. These are just some of the things that I've cut out from my expenses, and honestly, I've never been happier since, because now I'm able to save so much more money, which I can then save and spend on more meaningful things that actually make me happy. I talked about some of the purchases that I've made that has actually improved my financial life, so make sure to check out this video next to see what they are and if they could also benefit your financial life. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, please drop a like and subscribe if you haven't already. For now, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.